Hello everyone, welcome back to this course, and still we are dealing with the data analysis techniques. We have seen about the regression, and today we are going to look at the classification. And moreover, we have other methods like clustering, graph analytics, and so on. But let's focus on classification for the time being. So from regression, we know that we can predict a continuous value such as a change in height, weight, or even the housing price or the salary based on your experience. On the other hand, we can also predict, say for example, if a sound signal contains a human voice or not. As we have seen a touch of logistic regressions as well. So we can set a kind of a threshold and we can see whether we can able to classify by means of some decision rules. For example, if the probability is more than 50%, we decide that it is a human voice. Though at times regression can slightly be used as a classifier, we have specific models for classifiers. They are very unique and they are more efficient. Let's see about those classifier models. Yes, the basic classification that we have in hand, we have seen about logistic regressions. It's a kind of classification methods which can classify based on the values of 0 and 1, and that's similar to that of a binary classification. Now let's consider a more detailed classifier where we have to model the classifier based on a threshold value. For example, when we have a threshold value and if the value are above this threshold value, then we mark it as a viral disease, or else we mark it as a normal one. You have all the parameters. Even for example, like if you have the temperature, and if the temperature is high above this threshold value, we call it as fever. If it is below that threshold value, we call it as not fever. And most popular place where we use this classifiers or to detect whether the email is spam or non-spam based on the text, based on the sender, and all these information, we can classify it as spam mail or non-spam email. What are the types of classifications that are available? Let's briefly see some of the types of classifiers. The first one is the sentiment classifier. So this classifier determines if a text is positive or negative. So this can be used to determine the product reviews. For example, in Amazon, if you are going to buy a product and you can see those reviews, right, and based on that review you can classify whether these reviews are positive or negative. In the same way, there are other classifiers that are available, like the topic classifier. So while visiting your web page, you can see that whether this page is a news media page or whether this web page is related to health, home, decorations or recreations, science, computer, business. So based on the English text that's are available in the web page, we can actually classify this web page as well. That's like a topic classifier. Then comes the most famous image classification. Yes, image classification is one of the prime classifier, I would say, because it's been used today widely. Even for example, the satellite images can easily classify the sea region and the land region, and in the land region you can classify the rivers and roads, and again you can classify deserts and forest. Still there is other applications, like you can classify there is a forest fire like wildfire and no fire. And other regions where we classify is like, for example, using machine learning techniques, you can classify whether it's a man or a woman, boy or a girl, dog or a cat. Yes, there are a lot of applications to this image classification. Just think about few more applications that comes to your mind in case of image classification. Then comes the mood classifier. So as you can read the text of the writer, based on the text you can see whether the state of mind of the writer is upset or happy, or does he have depression and so on. So these days people are using social medias, and in social media they express their emotions by means of mostly by means of text, and these text can indicate like what this person is undergoing. For example, based on his expressions that he has texted, you can either say that he is excited or he is very happy, he is having good time, or else you can say that he is really upset and he is going through a phase of depression. Even you could say that the depression is so severe that even he might who knows, like take an effort to commit suicide, or he would like to be separated from everyone and so on. Like, yes, the mood classifier has a lot of application in real time these days. There are other classifiers like gender classifiers. So this classifier tries to figure out if a text is written by a male or female. That's kind of, I tried to use this classifier, one of the models that are available online, and I found that this classifier is kind of 60% okay, I would say, which means that there's a lot of research area opened in this area, like to predict clearly whether a person is a male or female just from the input text that he's giving. But that's a hard task even for humans to classify. Well, let's see how we can model the classifier so that they can take decisions based on the data available. All these models like image classifiers, mood classifiers, or sentiment classifiers, all these classifiers we have to model it. Based on the model it would respond. So today we are going to look at movie reviews, and let's see how to classify based on the movies reviews. So the classifier that we are going to use here is the sentiment classifier or sentiment analysis, the same method that I have just told that it can be used for product reviews, and moreover the same method can be also used for restaurant reviews. Say for example, if you want to go for a restaurant and you are looking at the reviews written, and based on the reviews given you can actually take those text and see whether this text points to have some positive note or the negative note, and based on that you are going to decide, well, this restaurant is a good one, it has a good review, so it is positive, then probably you might go to the restaurant. In the same way we have this movie reviews. Based on the reviews given you can classify whether it's a good movie or a bad movie. So yeah, movie reviews, yes, you want to see a movie and then you want to know what is its rating. By the time when I was looking at this movie, Ready Player One, I found that at this time it has 8.0 reviews, I mean 8.0 rating, IMDb rating, based on this 32,301 votes, you could say. So well, what do the people say about this movie? Yes, the rating itself gives us some information as if it's pretty good movie, but how do we classify a positive and negative reviews? Well, given the review, this classifier determines if the text is positive or negative. Let's see some sample reviews here. So there are sample reviews, 3 reviews are given to us, and as you can see the first one says the super duper cool and exciting movie is coming up. Well, the super duper cool, exciting movie is in itself is kind of positive note. And let's look at the second one. The second reviews also gives us some informations about certain positive note, like it says incredibly impressive film, and then it adds on to the point that it is fantastic. So these are some of the positive note that you can look at. And if you want to go for certain negative note, you can see still there is some negative note. It's like this is definitely not for young kids, right? And you have few more points here. It says the third review, it says we were very disappointed. Well, these are some of the points that we can look at when you look at this reviews. Let's see how to model such classifier. So you have this classification engine, and you have this sentiment classification, and you input your reviews. Come and say, for example, super duper cool and exciting movie. You're going to input this phrases, this sentence into it. It should produce the positive as the output. So what we are going to do is we are going to take all the reviews and we are going to break them up into sentences. You have all the paragraphs, break them into sentences. So each review composed of multiple sentences, and some sentence cover different aspect of the movie. As we have seen, some sentence says the movie has some specific storyline, some it says the movie climax is not good, or movie climax is good, and so on. So they have covering the specific aspect of the movie, some reviews. So we are going to break up all these sentences, and then again we are going to look word by word to see whether this word gives us a positive note or not. That's the classifier here. Sentence from the review is given as the input to this classifier model, and then the output is either positive review or negative review. Well, we haven't designed the model yet. We will go to this model soon and see how to design this model, because the input sentence from review we already have. Only thing that we don't have is the actual model. So again, the classifier model, we have several inputs, like all the sentences are given as the input, all the features are taken in, and the output has to be labeled, like the label is positive or negative. That's the label that you are giving at the output. So let's look at a simple classifier model for this particular application of movie review. So here is a simple model. Okay, we have the sentence from review as the input X, and this input X is fed in to this classifier model, and this simple classifier has a threshold here. So the main objective here is that it's going to count the positive and negative words in a sentence, and if the number of positive words is greater than the number of negative words, then our output Y is going to be positive, positive review, else Y is going to be negative. So before that we have to list the positive words, and the list of negative words should be listed. So for example, fantastic, superb, great, awesome, amazing, incredible. These are some of the positive words that we have, and the negative words for the movies like horrible, disappointed, waste, terrible, disgusting, and so on. So well, these are some of the ways in which we can model it. The model is very simple model. In fact, we just use an if then else decision model. and the decision is also based on a very simple threshold. Here just count the number of positive and negative words and see the number of positive words is greater than the negative words or not. If it is yes, it's great, it is greater than the negative words. I mean, if the number of positive words is greater than the number of negative words, then we are going to say it is a positive, this movie has the positive review, or else we say this movie has a negative review. Let's see more on this. There is some issues involved with this kind of threshold classifier. So how do we get the list of positive and negative words? So in English we have lots of words that can give a positive note and lots of words that can give a negative note as well. So that's hard to include almost all the words that can be formed. But basically we can try to include as many words as possible. You can try to extract from a certain dictionary or other database and see to include all the positive words and negative words. But again, the positive words and negative words, they have a different degree. For example, fantastic, incredible, these are positive and definitely they have a higher degree of sentiment than that of saying, well, it's good, it's very good, good movie, isn't it? Yeah. So how do we weigh the different words? That's another question that we have to ask. Then comes the other problem, like sometimes single word is not enough to determine the sentiment, whether it's positive or negative. For example, you have the words like good, which is positive, and sometimes you do have not good, that is negative, very good, that's definitely, I would say, double positive. Yes, at times we have to look at the prefix and postfix words because they can really turn around the actual sentiment. So we may have to scrutinize the features that we are looking at and we may have to model it accordingly. Okay, let's try to refine. Let's try to refine our original model of this classifier. Let's see how we can do it. So now we are going to give some weights for these words. For example, if it is good, let's say we give 1 point. If it's great, we say 1.5. If it's awesome, we say 2.5. If it's bad, we say minus 1.0. Terrible, minus 2.1. Awful, minus 3.3, and so on. So we'll use this to train the system. Now we are going to grade. Let's see how to grade based on the given sentence. For example, you have the input as movie was incredible, the action was awesome, but the storyline is terrible. Let's say if the word incredible has, say, let's say it has 2 points and awesome has 2.5 points and terrible has minus 2.8. So when you add all those words, if this value is greater than 0, we can say it's going to be a positive review. If it is less than 0, we can say that it is going to be negative review. So that's as simple as that. But also note that there are unwanted words like popcorn, cinemas, movie, and these words we don't have to grade it. We can just give the weight as 0. So based on this grading, let's redefine our original classifier. Okay, now we are having our sentence from the review as the input given to this classifier, and the words with their weights, respective weights, are fed in to this classifier. Now we are going to do it right, like the scores that is equal to weighted count of words in the sentence. We are going to have the weighted count of words altogether. if the score that we have obtained, if the score is greater than 0, we are turning out the y to be positive, else the y to be negative. That is, the output is going to be positive, or else it is going to be negative. Now things are getting more simpler as it covers most of the parts, like because we have actually remodeled our whole classifier, and now this classifier looks better. Okay, so what we are going to do here is we are going to train our classifier. So for example, if you have 100 reviews and I am going to use 80 reviews as the training set, and with this training set I am going to train the classifier. We are going to train the classifier. So at this time, with this 80 training set, the classifier learns how to find whether it is a positive review or it is a negative review. So at this time, with the training sets, actually the classifier is learning on making the decision. Of course, we also provide these weights to it, and these weights are going to be used to score every elements in the test set that we are going to use for evaluation. And then, as I told you, we have among the 100 we have 80 for the training and 20 for the test set, and test sets can be fed in, and you can evaluate whether our classifier that has been trained using the training set has trained well or not. The evaluation can be done with the remaining data sets available as the test data. So now, after training, your classifier now learned how to produce the output. Now we are going to use the test data. Let's say test example we are going to use, and the test that we are going to use as a test sentence, for example, the test review is given to us now, and it says the first one, it says movie was great, and it is given to the classifier which is already trained, or it already learned classifier now, and it says okay, positive, the output is positive, which means that we are getting the correct output. The output is correct. And remember that right now we are hiding the true label, so only based on the output we are going to determine or compare and see the accuracy of the learned classifier. Okay, this is one input. Let's say another input is like movie was okay. Well, the movie was okay is kind of a negative sentence. Was okay is just, which means that just okay, and our classifier, this classifier, term it as a positive review, which means that it is a mistake. It's supposed to be negative, but it turns out to be positive. So then, which means that we have come across an incorrect output. We have made a mistake. So we have to do it for every sentence in the review and see how much correct informations we have got, how much incorrect information, and based on this we can see how good is our classifier. So that takes us to the next slide. Here we can see how good is our classifier, like for example, how accurate is our classifier, the number of correct to the total number of sentences, the number of correct reviews that we got with the total number of sentences, we can see how accurate it is. In the same way, if it is erroneous, we can also calculate the error value, like number of incorrect classification that we have did, like incorrect reviews that were given, the total number of sentence. So how do we determine this? Like, is the classifier with 90% accuracy good? Not necessarily, it depends. For example, like one of the data shows that 90% email sent at that time, like in 2010, or spam, Well, if we say that if I just predict that every email that is sent is a spam, then we get 90% accuracy, right? Just imagine you are going to classify all the emails as spam. Whatever email you receive, you classify it as spam. Even if you do that, which means that you get 90% accuracy. So there is a kind of a fuzzy place where we are hard to determine the goodness of the accuracy that we have in hand. So that's where we have to see and test the system and see whether this classifier qualifies to be the better one. So for that, let's look at this confusion matrix, and this confusion matrix provides us some information about how it can be done. So this has true positive, true negative, false negative, false positive. Say for example, I have 100 reviews, and in 100 reviews, suppose we have say 60 positive reviews and 40 negative reviews. If this is the case, let's say our true positive values, which in other words we know that the total number of positive review is 60, that is target that our positive is 60 and the negative is 40, that is the total number. So among the 60 positive review, our classifier correctly identifies say 50 positive reviews. It correctly identifies 50. In other words, it provides true positive 50. At the same time, our classifier has some error, so that it produces like around 10 false negative. Then we know that there are 40 negative reviews. Among the 40 negative reviews, it correctly says that okay, 40 reviews, then let's say 30. Among the 40 reviews, let's say 30 has been truly predicted to be negative. It gives correctly predicts as the negative values, negative reviews, which means that it classified 10 as positive, which are false. So among the 60, 50 is being classified as positive, that is true, we know that that's true, but 10 is classified as negative, but that is false, so that's why we call false negative. So among the 40 negative, we know that 30 has been classified as negative, which is true, so we call true negative, and 10 has been classified as positive, but we know that that's false positive. So in this we can actually determine the accuracy of the system. We know that 80, 50 plus 30 equals 80. This 80 is our correct or true classification. We have did the correct classification. So it's like, in other words, I would say our classification method is 80% correct or accurate. So this is a simple way to see how our system performs. So we have seen an example of movie reviews, and the same thing can be applied for other applications as well. So the classification is a very simple way, and it's a very powerful machine learning methods that can be used for classifying different things based on the different application. So why don't you try using this classification methods and see how you can use this classifier for predicting and trying to see the trueness of the classification and see how accurate your classification works. So that's a very important part in our data analysis. This classification, classifying the group, is quite important. So next we are going to see about the clustering methods. So until then, have a nice time. Goodbye.